So, first of all, I want to welcome all of you to our EMS Stroke Coalition meeting. This is, I think, the first in-person meeting that we've had since before COVID. So very excited about that, and I'm delighted that many of you could, drive from long distances from your work and be here in person. It means a lot to all of us, to EMS, to all of our stroke coordinators, and countless our healthcare providers that have done a lot of work with us to improve pre-hospital stroke care. So we have a great agenda lined up, and I just, before we get started, want to, for those of you that are new to us, new to, these meetings, kind of provide a, historical context of how we got here today. So, as you all know, with large vessel occlusion strokes and the evolution of mechanical thrombectomy, the proven efficacy starting in 2015, and that really becoming a standard of care and revolutionizing our field. So a group of us, Dr. Randy Katz, Dr. Peter Antevi, many others from EMS, major advocates for improving pre-hospital stroke care based on their own personal experiences, family experiences, especially for Dr. Antevi. We group, at least amongst the EMS leadership in Broward County, and we said, what can we do to improve care, right? Now that there's this amazing effective treatment available, how do we get patients to the right hospital in a timely manner with EMS triage protocols, the LVO assessment scales that were just starting to come out in late 2014, 2015, and then how do we improve in-hospital care? So beginning in 2015, we created the Broward EMS Stroke Coalition, and I believe, at least to my knowledge, that it was among the first EMS-based stroke coalitions in the country. And we had a lot of support from stroke coordinators, EMS medical directors, chiefs, captains, and one of our goals beyond standardizing pre-hospital stroke protocols and in-hospital care, parallel workflow, timely reperfusion, was sharing that data back to the EMS, right? Because up until then, unlike trauma and STEMI care, it was a black box. And so EMS really didn't know the quality of care at any of these individual hospitals. And all of them, literally overnight after the trials were, becoming comprehensive stroke centers, stroke centers starting in 2017. So we had our work cut out for us. So basically, we started working with the University of Miami and their amazing group at that time, led by the late Dr. Ralph Stafford. And we had a very simple request that can we create some mechanism through data collection and sharing with EMS on a regular basis so that they had a very clear understanding of the quality of care. And what I mean by that is, what is the stroke volume at the receiving hospital? What are the door to needle times, door to puncture times, outcomes data, complication rates, etc. And it's a heavy lift, right? With so much data that's being collected at all of our stroke centers, again with the guidelines and other national databases. But they were very enthusiastic. They were already developing the Florida Stroke Registry and had the infrastructure, the statistician, the analyst. So it was very exciting for us from an EMS and neurointerventional standpoint to partner with the University of Miami. And so today, a lot of what you will hear is the progress that has occurred as a result of their hard work. So I just want to give a round of applause to the FSR team at UM and to Dr. Ralph Stafford and his members. So beyond that, we also wanted to, before we started sharing data with EMS, we wanted to make sure all the in-hospital processes were in place and that we didn't want to shame any hospitals, give them ample opportunity to be ready. So starting in 2016, we began to create educational courses for pre-hospital care, as well as in-hospital providers to make sure that everyone, was acting as quickly as possible, parallel workflow, as I mentioned earlier, and get these patients treated quickly. We didn't want anybody behind the eight ball, prior to sharing the data. And so we gave each of them, all the hospitals, initially in Broward and then expanded to the Tri-County, about 2 years, from 2017 to 2019. And then in 2019, Dr. Antebi, and with his advocacy, we sent out letters to all these C-suite executives at all of the stroke centers providing TPA and thrombectomy treatments, so that at least they knew what was coming from the Stroke Coalition, at least soft mandate to share data, right? Nobody can require any of these hospitals to share data, but if some of them were early adopters, such as Memorial, and some of the other hospitals like University of Miami, Baptist, then our hope was others kind of, aligned with us, just being the best practices, right? And so now we're really at this junction where we start to see the results. Over the last couple of years, despite COVID, as you'll see in the dashboard, we've truly maintained the quality of care with consistent, fast work and needle times, as Dr. Romano showed at our last coalition meeting a couple of months ago. And so, we are very excited about the agenda tonight. We're going to have Carolina Gutierrez and Jose Romano, the directors, leads of Florida Stroke Registry, go first. And then we have stroke coordinators, the delegates representing all of the tri-counties, to really give updates about, what the status is of some of the stroke centers, any challenges, issues, and so forth. And they've also worked diligently to create a poll so that we can also get feedback on future coalition meetings and what type of topics for educational purposes to address. And then after that, we'll have updates from Dr. Antebi from the EMS side. We have some exciting news in terms of additional county joining us. And then we'll open it up for Embo Journal Club by Drs. Harris Kamal and Vasu Saini from University of from Mount Sinai and from Memorial. So this is a new format. We've never done this before in terms of in-person plus hybrid plus Journal Club plus Embo Club, but I think it's going to be very exciting. And so, welcome to what we hope will be many more meetings to come in the future. Dr. Romano.
Thank you very much. It's really great to be here. It is wonderful to see good friends, new faces, and share with you some of the things that we have been doing at the Florida Stroke Registry. I wanted to acknowledge Dr. Gutierrez, who's the Associate Director of the Florida Stroke Registry. We also have Christina here, and I think I saw Jilly Gordon-Peru and Victor Napruto online, and there may be others that have joined us remotely. So great to see all of you here. What Dr. Gutierrez and I wanted to do today was to give you an update of what has been happening with the Florida Stroke Registry. So many of you know that the Florida Stroke Registry began over a decade ago, initially with NIH funding to establish the Florida Stroke Registry. And then eventually, with all of your advocacy and as a grassroots effort, it got funded by the state and actually written into law that it was mandatory that if you were a stroke center, you had to contribute data to the Florida Stroke Registry. And this initiative has grown, and it is more than a registry, it's more than data. It is an educational collaboration. It's an advocacy initiative. It is a way to impact care by benchmarking data, sharing data, involving multiple stakeholders as we have in this room. We try to improve the care of stroke patients. Now, we are delighted to let you know that just a few weeks ago, we got news that the legislature approved and the governor signed off on funds for this next year. As you know, we do require some funds to keep everything going. So we're delighted that we're here. So we currently have 172 hospitals participating in the Florida Stroke Registry. If you recall, many years ago when the Florida Stroke Act was first passed, almost 2 decades ago, one of the first, or maybe the first state to have a Florida Stroke Act. At that time, there was the option to be self-attested as a primary or comprehensive stroke center. But based on data from the Florida Stroke Registry and based on the input that many of you had for us, we started looking at performance metrics, and based on that, the state decided that it was time to have national certification of stroke centers. So we currently have 91% of the hospitals in Florida and the Florida Stroke Registry being nationally certified. And you see the breakdown there. We have a 43 thrombectomy capable, that's actually comprehensive stroke centers, right? 18 thrombectomy capable centers, 92 primary stroke centers, 4 acute stroke ready hospitals, and then a few that I'm sure are in the process of getting nationally certified. So this is great news. We have also identified a number of hospitals that are currently not in the registry, but hopefully will join soon. There we go. I can't read off the screen, but I can perhaps read off that screen. This is the hospitals in South Florida and their certification, Miami-Dade County, Broward, and Palm Beach. So Broward, congratulations, 93% of the hospitals in Broward are currently nationally certified. 82% in Miami-Dade County, 85% in Palm Beach, which is really great news. And hopefully when we meet next time, we'll see the number of hospitals that are certified growing over time. So fantastic news there. As you know, the Florida Stroke Registry is also collaborating with the Department of Health of the state of Florida on Coverdale efforts. The whole Coverdale acute stroke program is a designation given to select states with an award, and the state of Florida earned this whole Coverdale status now a couple of years ago, right? Like you gave us a few years out. And this really focuses on trying to improve systems of care. There are 13 Coverdale states in the US, and we are one of them. So we have asked each hospital in Florida, in the Florida Stroke Registry, to join the Coverdale program. And it takes a signature from the hospital authorities and just a couple of new data points to add to your ongoing collection of data. It's relatively easy. We currently have 62 hospitals in Florida that have signed the Coverdale Amendment. And you see here the ones in South Florida that have joined Coverdale, and our ask to all of you is to make sure that your hospitals join Coverdale. There are a number of advantages of joining Coverdale, and perhaps Dr. Gutierrez can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Certainly, if you join, it's a prestigious thing. You get on our website. We will know the fact that your hospital is part of it. Those participate will have opportunities to go to meetings, potentially for free. So we'll encourage you to participate in that sense, because we have surveys, we have different asks of the hospitals that we know will take a little bit of time, but we also have ways to incentivize, we hope. And again, it's a prestigious group. It's 13 for the past 3 years. We're expecting another award to come out in the next year, where there will be a 5-year award. but it changes every time. So hopefully we'll be in that group again in the next 5 years.
Great. And again, this is of a great importance to the state of Florida, Department of Health. So they may be reaching out to you as well to join Coverdale. Again, a pretty simple process. Within Coverdale, there is a focus not only on acute treatment of stroke, but also on the transition of stroke care after hospitalization, which is critically important to prevent a second stroke, and eventually, hopefully, also on primary prevention. So the continuum of stroke care and the systems of stroke care. Oops, too fast there. Can I go on the, let's go back. No, go back. One more. Perfect. I may be preempting Dr. Andevi here, but there has been some news that Monroe may want to join. So this is very good news, and you'll hear a lot more about that. There are 3 hospitals in Monroe County, and you will have to think through. And by the way, is there anybody from Monroe here? A bit of a drive. Anybody online from Monroe? Okay. So we will have to think about the dashboards, the regional dashboards, and our initial thought, but again, it's up for discussion as a group, whether the Monroe County Hospital should join the Miami-Dade County dashboards, which would make probably more sense, particularly because at least 2 of them are part of the Baptist group. So there's more to come there. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gutierrez to talk a little bit about the webpage.
Thank you. So real quickly, you all may have seen this, and if you haven't, hopefully you will go. You all should have accounts to go into the website. This is the part where you go onto our website, you have to log in, and you have a password. Basically, what this is the different stroke conditions that exist right now throughout the state. You'll find we've been around for a while. And so what we're trying to do for you through the Florida Stroke Registry is create a web page for you. So you see on the right side of the screen, you see this image that we created for you. This video is being made right now. We're going to upload this video and any other materials that you want for your coalition on the website. If you don't mind going to the next slide. The most important part about this website is that we've been creating EMS hospital collaboration chart. And basically that was something that was requested by Ken Shepke, as well as Peter Antevi and others from this group, where what they're trying to do, Paul Pepe, also what they're trying to do is get a little better visualization of the dashboards that we create for the hospitals. We're still blinding it, obviously, for EMS and for the hospitals, but this is a place where EMS can go into the website with a password and access the dashboards. It's a couple of steps, and we're trying to make it a few less steps for everybody. But these are the things that you'll see when you join into the website. I don't know if I need the next one. Oh, I know what I wanted to say about this. What I wanted to say is I'm going to send out an email to the group because I also need names of EMS directors who should be a part of this group. We're not giving this access to just all EMS directors from the counties, but those who participate in this coalition, because you're here and we hope that you'll see the dashboards, you'll talk about it together here in this kind of an environment, and you're part of this coalition. So we'll ask the chairs of this group to tell us who should be a part of the website. If you can go to the next one, it may be your turn, but when you click here, you'll eventually get to these, and you'll see these dashboards in a blinded way. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Romano.
Great. So with the dashboards and regional dashboards, and just so people don't get confused, the FSR has 3 reports. One to the state, an annual report to the state, which everybody can access. one to each hospital, which is focused on disparities. And then the regional dashboards that encompasses the performance of acute stroke metrics for the participating hospitals benchmarked with the county, surrounding counties, and the state. There are 11 measures, and I'm going to show you just a couple of them. And by the way, there's many ways you can visualize these metrics. You can do time tracking, you can do a number of things. But let's look at the graph on your left. And again, in the website, this is an interactive graph. But you see in colors the hospitals. The ones with higher volumes are green, medium volumes in blue or purple, and then smaller volumes in orange. You will know who you are as a hospital. You'll know which letter in this list you are, and you will share this information with your EMS medical director. But you will also be able to compare yourself to the county and to the state. So, and I can't read from here, but let's take hospital K. Hospital K saw 284 patients, gave thrombolytics to 20% of them. And then you can see that this is better than the state. The state is at 14%. By the way, this is a great number. A decade ago, we were at 7% thrombolytic use amongst all ischemic stroke patients. So a tremendous improvement, right? And then on your right, you see the door-to-needle times. And again, as a state, we are at a little over 30 minutes. I can't read from there, but 34 minutes in 2022. By the way, I believe that this is probably the fastest door-to-needle time in the US as a state. This includes large and small, public, academic, private, urban, rural hospitals. Everybody put together, still 34 minutes door-to-needle time. Tremendous. But you see that within this area, and I believe that this may be, is this Broward? Yeah, this is Broward. There are some differences, right? Some hospitals do a bit more TPA than others. Some have a little bit faster door-to-needle times than others. We believe that this is useful information because you can share it with your administration, either to celebrate successes or perhaps to ask for more resources by being benchmarked with the rest of the county, the region, and the state. So we hope that you find this useful. Let's go to the next one. Here you have on your left the utilization of thrombectomy for acute ischemic stroke in those patients that arrive within 24 hours of symptom onset. And by the way, this has been refined over the years based on your input. If you recall, initially we had a different report for those that arrive within 6 hours and those that arrive within 6 and 24 hours. And we have collapsed that into one metric. Not everybody does thrombectomy, and that's why not all the hospitals have a bar associated with it. But again, if you look at the utilization of thrombectomy for the state, it is 15%. Again, you were at almost zero, or maybe 1-2% a decade ago. A tremendous improvement over time. But again, with differences by hospitals. So comparing hospital J and hospital M, there may be some differences in what types of patients you get and so on. But there are some differences. And then to your right, you have door to puncture time. Again, this varies a lot on your way of assessing patients. Some hospitals may require a lot of advanced neuroimaging. Others may have streamlined that. There may be many factors that play a role here. But again, this gives you a sense of where we are and how we're doing. And by the way, Broward is doing great. They have short door to needle times. They have higher use of thrombectomy, short door to puncture times. So great news here. Let's go to the next one. Perfect. You will hear from Dr. Gordon Peru about a new initiative. We're looking at inter-hospital or inter-facility transfers, door in, door out, or door in metrics. You will hear from her about this new initiative and the work group that is ongoing to try to define that metric, implement it, so we can track it and report it to all of you. We think that this is important because not everybody gets to a comprehensive stroke center right away for a thrombectomy. Walk-ins or people that may be taken with a different diagnosis. Yes.
What's IFT? Sorry, I don't know the acronym.
Inter-facility transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, so eventually, once we define this metric and we make it operational, this will go on the dashboard as well. And this will be an important metric for primary stroke centers to track as well, right? Okay, let me turn it over to Dr. Gutierrez.
Almost finished. Just on the right side, when I remind you, I want to talk about it earlier. These are the annual hospital disparities dashboards. We have a new look, but these are individual for each of the hospitals. And so there's about 17 measures. They're all about quality performance. We stratify by race, ethnicity, and sex. And I think there's some new recommendations or requirements by CMS and also by Joint Commission related to heterogeneity and disparities. So these reports may become much more important to all the hospitals. We'd love to hear from you. You can tell us what we should improve on this. And we can run through these really fast. This is just opportunities that you all have to reach out to us if you want. Magnets, if you want to see videos, you see Dr. Antevi there with one of the videos that we did. This is community outreach stuff that we have to give all the hospitals for free. And if you go to the next one.
I'm sorry, and you can use all of these resources for your local education as well. So not everybody has access to a lot of educational modular activities, and you can use them to educate your community, your patients, in any way that it can be helpful. Please use them.
All for free. Some publications that we've had, we don't have to go through them, but they're also on our website if you all want to access them, a variety of different topics. And finally, I know that we're getting close on time. Our annual meeting, these are our guest speakers, Mitch Elkine from the AHA and also from other times that we've worked together. He was a mentee of Dr. Sadho, and then Dr. Prabhakaran, who is doing important stuff in, door out, inter-facility transfer type of work. But we invite you all. We hope you'll be with us. Dr. Pepe, please answer our emails and say that you're going to attend. Yes.
What language do you want me to answer?
Yeah, so we really would love to see you all. It's just in a few weeks in Jacksonville, and it's going to be a great meeting. So thank you all.
Yeah, Dr. Pepe, quick question. Here we go. And other people.
So one of the things I wanted to emphasize is your last slide is community effort, because we can do all these things quickly. But when we studied this through this coalition, we found out that what do you think is the longest part of the getting people into a comprehensive stroke center? Is it the time it takes to respond to 911? Is the bypass time, the time on scene? They got to get KGs, they got to get glucose. What is the longest period of time for a person had to time and call them by call? It's almost like it's a half an hour in time for EMS when they get the call, but it's sometimes 4 or 5 hours. We even looked at that. It was wake up stroke or daytime stroke. So what I'm getting is, since we have a lot of the card sheets here, that got to be just like PPR, you got to get people to learn the fast where we want to do that. Thanks.
And it's one of the state's priorities in the 5-year improvement plan, so it is an important piece.
Another question in the back.
Thank you, Doc. Just had a question regarding the EMS side of things, and I do see how you're trying to integrate and get involvement by providing invites for EMS to go in and take a look at the dashboard, but it seems to be very hospital heavy by way of the metrics. How can we, as an EMS community, help in providing this particular registry data as compared to, like, say, what we're doing with American Heart, with, sure, everything.
Yes, thank you. So the purpose of these metrics initially was to make sure that all stakeholders, EMS, hospitals, other individuals have access to acute stroke metrics. We realize that there's many other metrics that we want to incorporate, and we've been working very closely with the state, with Viva, to try to identify other metrics that can be incorporated into these dashboards so we can track the continuum of care. And we're in the process of merging MSTAR's data with FSR data. So that will be very exciting. But thank you for the question. Right on, we agree.
I'm sorry. And obviously, we're getting input from our EMS partners. That's why we're inviting you to our meetings and our annual meeting, because we want to get your point of view. What's important for you to see on these regional dashboards? So we have to create a separate one for you. But we're definitely trying to address that particular one.
And the other big issue is that all of our data, all of our pre-hospital data, doesn't get into the hospital database, which goes through get with the guidelines through something called quintiles. Anyway, if our data can seamlessly flow into the hospital, and then they can grab it, get with the guidelines, that's where the FSR gets all their data from, then they can make sense of it. But at this point in time, if all these wonderful stroke coordinators are here, if they wanted to get our EMS data into this, they have to go find a report, start typing in exactly the times and so forth, because there is a special tab, an EMS tab. And how many people are filling out the EMS tab for their stroke, get with the guideline data? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so there shouldn't be humans involved, I think. It should just be all seamless. But those vendors, quote unquote, aren't playing ball just yet. I've been pushing them to do that. And that's kind of the evolution we're going to. So that you had a great point. Yeah.
So, not to take this too far along, but it seems to get, and not to be too techy about it, but it seems that we're falling within the need to have integration involving nemesis, or we have the data that is required by nemesis. And I don't know what's nemesis. It's there, it's just a matter of getting those codes then translated into your registry so that data can be migrated over, similar like we talked about here, the care search. Right.
So all that is possible. It's just that those connections have not been made at this point in time.
That's part of Coverdale. That's Coverdale. That's what we're right now.
Right. And so the other thing I want to say is that I was just sitting with my chiefs and we're looking at the screen. In Coral Springs, we did 185 strokes last year. They went to 2 hospitals. So we can now look at those letters because we know which hospital and which letter, and we can say, oh, that's the hospital we go to. They're doing a great job, or we have to go talk to them. So from the EMS perspective, you guys, Fort Lauderdale, will go with Dr. Roach. You'll look at the letter, you look at how the hospital is performing, and you go visit them. And you do the CEO tour with the stroke coordinator there in the room. And you say, hey, great job. Thank you guys. We love coming here. Or you're at 5% when the hospital next door is at 20%. And we're going to keep coming every quarter to talk about that. And that's really what these dashboards are there for us today. And all the medical directors now, thanks to these wonderful people at the registry, have given that to us. Any other question? Is there? Good. Any comments from stroke coordinators or anyone in the hospitals? Before we continue, the next speaker, I think it's Dr. Peru, right? I want to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Medtronic. Where are you guys? Right there. Every time we come up with something crazy, when we first started this thing many years ago, 2000, whatever it was, you guys were there for us, so thank you. We really appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna get the tech stuff and.
So I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce Dr. Julie Martin Peru, who is an integral part of the Florida Stroke Registry. She's also the director of neurology and stroke at Jackson South and Jackson West medical centers in Miami-Dade County. A great colleague, and she is here with Dr. Del Bruto, who is also a member of our group and a great collaborator. So I'll turn it over to her, and I guess I'll.
No, hold on, let me do some one thing. So she's going to be speaking out of the speaker. So let's hope it works. All right, Dr. Peru.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me, even virtually. It looks very fun. Thank you, Dr. Romano, for that kind introduction. Are you guys seeing my screen okay?
Yes.
And you're seeing the presentation view, right? Not the speaker's view, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So a lot of this has already started to be covered in the little talks that we've had so far. It's been really interesting how well our talks are woven together. So I'll talk quickly with you about why do we need a new measure for the dashboards that you so eloquently heard about just a few minutes ago, and then give you an update on our progress and really just a quick sneak peek, nobody else has seen it, on what some of the data has started to look like. So as you heard before, we'd be adding door in, door out as a new measure to the dashboard. You'll remember that many of the measures that we currently have for the dashboard were defined in 2010, and the dashboards have been very instrumental in improving care. But since then, since 2010, there's been a tremendous evolution in endovascular therapy with, as Dr. Mehta said at the beginning of the session, is proven effective therapy for large vessel occlusive stroke, with patients doing dramatically better with mechanical thrombectomy than without. And so with this change in 2015, what we've seen across the nation is an increase in the need to transfer patients. You see this inflection point in 2015 when all the randomized clinical trials were published, and that's the same for Florida. So the question becomes, what's happening for these patients who get transferred, and what can we do here in the state of Florida to improve things? So as you've heard, different stroke coalitions have done different things. In Broward County, they do screening with stroke scales for LVO, and they'll do a bypass. So if someone has a high LVO pre-screening score, they'll bypass the comprehensive centers and bypass the primary stroke centers and go straight to the comprehensive stroke centers. And that's where you get the measures you see on the dashboard. As Dr. Romano intimated, though, not everybody will actually be bypassed. There are patients who have a low NIH stroke scale or a low pre-hospital score and who still have a large vessel occlusive stroke. Or patients go directly from home to the primary stroke center rather than calling EMS. And so this is an opportunity for us to really assess the other part of our process, those patients who arrive at a primary stroke center who then need to be transferred to a comprehensive stroke center, and see what are our times and how are we doing here in Florida, so that we can benchmark and improve as we've done with other metrics so far. So that the potential metrics that we're looking at are door in, door out. So once they arrive to the primary stroke center, how much time does it take for them to actually leave to get to the comprehensive? And then potentially door into the primary to door into the comprehensive to better understand what's the total time that it is taking. So as you've heard, what we've done so far is we've actually collaborated and started a task force, many of whom are currently in the room. Dr. Mehta, Dr. Antevi, I think Selena are in the room. I can't see everybody, so if I miss someone, it's the fault of the camera. But honestly, we're very happy with everyone who's joined our team. Then we met with the vendors to try to understand what's the source of the data and to optimize that source of data. and then look at our current data. So these are the members of the task force who have joined us so far, led by the Florida Stroke Registry team, and then of course our stakeholders across the state, including EMS as well. These are the potential sources of data for this interfacility transfer. There is actually a layer within the guidelines that already exists with some data present. We're going through diligently and checking each of these to understand our data sources and what we can do to improve things. And then this is that quick sneak peek that I promised. And you can see, just looking at this sneak peek, that indeed, like the rest of the country, while we have data from 2011, it really is only 2015, you see the Burgundy start to come up, that you see transfers happening more consistently. You have very few before these markers. Then what you notice is we do have a problem here in Florida because most of our transfers are taking 120 minutes upwards. So the benchmark, the national benchmark is transfers less than 120 minutes. And you can see the majority of our transfers are actually happening somewhere between 120 and 420 minutes. And so really this is an opportunity for us to benchmark and drive care as we have done with other metrics so far. So that is our sneak peek. I'll just echo Dr. Romano and Dr. Gutierrez and say, come join us on the task force if you're interested. Our next meeting will be July 31st, and you can feel free to come join us at our annual meeting in Jacksonville, Florida. We will have a special session on interfacility transfers. So with that, I will stop there and open the floor for questions and answers.
All right, thank you so much. That was amazing, and we heard you, saw you beautifully. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's going to be our next presenter? And we have several presentations coming up.
So next up, we have Ashley Bowling and Selena Anchetta and Mary Varghese. So at the last meeting, we had announced some restructuring of our coalition just to have more engagement with individual hospitals and also the stroke coordinators to get their feedback and learn from each other as the data evolves, new literature comes out, guidelines, et cetera. So we felt that having delegates, through the coalition, such as Ashley, Selena, and Mary, would give us a way to have a better relationship, improve communication with individual hospitals, and to continue to improve our education efforts. So I'm going to pass it along to Ashley, Selena, and Mary.
And the microphone.
Okay. So we're just going to start with some quick intros. My name is Ashley Bowling. I am the system-wide stroke program manager for Baptist Health South Florida.
Good evening. My name is Selena Anchetta. I'm the stroke program coordinator at Johnson Memorial Hospital in Miami.
And hello, everyone. My name is Mary Varghese. I'm the stroke coordinator at Delray Medical Center. So, So as program managers and coordinators, we can never let an opportunity pass by to collect data and explicit participation. So I'm going to ask everybody to get their cell phones out. I know you've been hiding them under the table and texting this whole time, but now's your opportunity to show them to us. So please scan that QR code and answer the poll real quick. It will take you about 15 to 30 seconds.
People are still scanning.
If you are still scanning, don't worry. The QR code is still there. I've got 14 responses so far. So let's see who else is going to respond for me here.
Go Broward. There's someone from West Palm Beach here.
I know. Oh, they get around.
Oh, you are. Okay.
All right, I'm at 26, so when I get to 30, we give you 4 more.
Yeah, and online too, right?
I'm going to settle for 26. So it looks like the majority of our attendees are from Broward, 69%, 27% from Miami-Dade, and 4% for Vasu Saini. We're going to have to work on that one for participation, but I know we're going to get there. And then who do we have here? We have EMS, 33%. Growth program coordinators and managers in second place at 26%.
Right.
We have an ED provider, a neurologist, and 15% for neurointerventionalists. I know we're going to get that up with our Embo Club. Are you familiar with the Florida Stroke Registry dashboard? I was expecting to say 100% after we just had that fantastic presentation.
Oh, good point.
If you're not familiar, you will become familiar over the course of these meetings.
Yeah.
And what do you do with your Florida Stroke Registry dashboard data? So 47% say they share with EMS. 34% share with hospital stroke committees and council. 13% to others. So if you're one of those other people, we want to hear from you. I want to know what you're doing with that data. So we can share that with our team here, and then 6% just do nothing and delete the email. So we're hoping to change that again with the recommendation. There we go.
At the bottom right.
Perfect. So I'm going to tell you a little story that happened recently within the last month at my hospital regarding the Florida Stroke Registry dashboard. So I was, I don't see our neurointerventionalists, but maybe once every 2 weeks, because they're 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And I hadn't probably seen them in a month. And so we were sitting down chatting, and he was like, "Have you seen them, the dashboards lately?" I said, "No." So I pulled them up immediately because I had emailed them to them. "Oh, okay, yeah, I see your email." We pulled them up, and we're looking through some of the ones that Dr. Romano was looking at, like the percent thrombolysis, as well as like the IVCPA cases. And we noticed, so for years now, we have been like the highest, we are a high volume center, but we were the highest volume of ischemic strokes. And we noticed that another letter was ahead of us. like they're getting more volume, like, and this freaked us out. 'Cause we're like, what, why are they getting more volume than us? So he immediately took it to the CEO. They had dinner like a week later, and now we have a stroke strategy meeting. So that's what came out of this whole, Florida Stroke Registry dashboard sharing, just, with my committee. So it's cool. So hopefully we'll grow a little bit because still want to be the highest in Palm Beach County. Next slide. Oh, sure. So yeah, we're going to show you a slide on IV thrombolysis, and it's looking at Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and comparing us all against Florida. Let's say get it over here. This one is endovascular. Yes, that one. So you can see what the door needle is for the IV thrombolysis. So Miami-Dade, it's pretty fast, 29 minutes. You can see everyone is about the same. Palm Beach, we can see we need some work, right? You guys down south here are really fast. We're at 36 minutes. So looking at this, it's a little, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to my colleagues up in Palm Beach County. You can see the symptomatic hemorrhages are 1% across the board, a little bit lower than Florida overall. And then the modified Rankin, if you're not familiar with that, it's a functioning scale. So is the patient able to function? Is the patient able to function? Can they dress? Can they eat? Can they brush their teeth? Go to the bathroom? So the percent of patients that have a pretty good outcome at 90 days, you're looking there, and look at Miami, almost 80% of their patients are at a high functioning at 90 days, whereas Palm Beach, about half of our patients. So that's how you kind of look. Oh, we're already on the endovascular side. So this is for patients that go for thrombectomy. Same kind of deal, door puncture. Florida overall is at 79 minutes, and then Broward is at 64. So faster than Miami and Palm Beach. Symptomatic hemorrhage are about the same across the board, and the modified Rankins in the 40s and 50s, which really matches with the literature. I think Miami is actually, and Broward, you guys are up there in the 50s and 60s, so that's great. So it's just nice, I'm competitive by nature, and when I look at my dashboard, I want to make sure I'm right at the bat. That's how I use them. I want to be the best, fastest. So maybe you will too. Anyway, thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about opportunities, and lo and behold, we have another little survey. So get out your phones again. It's survey time. So, everybody has opportunities. It's in all of the listserv questions, all of the AANN questions. So that's a nursing forum where we ask what everybody else does, because we know that best practices are made by people like us in this room. And why reinvent the wheel? If someone is doing it right, we want to know. We want to know what everybody is doing right. So let's see what we're doing over here. Oh. Might have to put it on repeat.
I can.
Okay. Okay, we only have one response. How many responses?
Not consistent staff.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we have not consistent staff, door to needle delays. Those are the most consistent things. And everybody struggles with that in the hospital and lately is not having consistent staff. Delays in imaging, access, yes, absolutely. We have some people in Miami-Dade that we cannot get IV access on. We have to get all kinds of people to come down to get any IVs in. Shift order, BP issues. Oh, I love this. Walk-in. So yeah, a lot of delays could be considered, challenging if walk-ins aren't noticed right away, or if people don't have very specific stroke symptoms, if they don't fit the be fast criteria and they don't look like a typical stroke. I want to say thank you to all our EMS partners, because thank you for giving us that family number. That phone number is so critical, because finding any kind of health history, if they're on anticoagulants and so forth, that is so important. Okay, thanks. Right, sort of puncture, kind of the same, right? Team hours, that's an interesting one there. Puncture time, team arrival, CT to lab. Oh yeah, I'm sure some of our partners in the room. Sorry. Okay, anything else?
So yeah, I think he has to change the bathroom.
We just changed.
I gotta know real about it.
Thank you. Okay, so how about reducing symptomatic intracranial hemorrhage post IV thrombolysis? BP, that blood pressure, I mean, that's evidence-based, right? Not having that type of issue. And sometimes underlying issues, underlying comorbidities that we didn't know about, like amyloid, angiography, like all those kind of things that we don't know beforehand. Next slide. And then what opportunities have you identified for improving patient outcomes post intravenous thrombolysis? Okay. How do we improve outcomes? So ICU protocol, I would say getting the patients up to ICU, not like keeping all these patients in ER for a long time. So
I need more method.
maybe we should get EMS to give the TPA, right? Yeah.
You see that one?
I have to drive semi trucks around with CT scans. All right. Oh, what did I miss?
One of them said need more bacon.
Oh, so we need more. So this is why, from a stroke coordinator perspective, we want to know all of these opportunities and ways that we can help each other in the South Florida Stroke Coalition. We want to be able to learn from each other, learn best practices. So please share all of your best practices with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thing is this for the update on.
Oh, are you going next?
I think so.
He just gave me some slides. Who's going next? You or him?
Do you have any slides? What's that? Do you have slides? Oh,
Okay, so here. Let me have this.
I thought we were just going for the updates.
Okay, so you guys can decide who wants to go first. It doesn't matter to me.
Actually, you can just go, what slides do you have, do you know? How many slides? No, what slides do you have? Oh, that's a cases. Oh, cases, right? No, so I'm just going to discuss the trials first.
Okay.
Then you guys discuss the cases. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, fine.
Like you have a good case to discuss? Yeah.
So you want to just go quickly then?
Sure, go ahead. Discuss your case then.
Okay, let me just do that and
Okay,
then
sure.
I'll get you.
Discuss your case and then I'll discuss the trials. And mine is on that one. So.
Yep, I'm gonna get you next. All right. Okay. Let me just get this off of here. Take that back.
We've been trying to make a.
It's another microphone in case you guys hear me shoot.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Some data out there, not everybody gets the traffic to the model business. So we're making an effort to at least get updates on what happened in the last, say, 3 months, 6 months, in most of the conferences. If there is anything that particularly focused on that changes practice, right? Actively changes practice with a new trial coming out, especially with large facilities trials and looking at this trial in what we change in terms of regulatory practice. So we're going to discuss a few cases and we will discuss the ESOC conference that happened in June and discuss a number of trials that particular.
Thanks, Vasu. Thanks for the opportunity to present the first Embo Club case. Thanks to Harris as well. And see my team here. Can you guys hear me better now? Okay, thanks. So my name is now Norman Ajiboye. I'm one of the neurointerventionalists at Memorial, and I have the opportunity of working with Nivesh, Harris, Sandy, Valerie, and Maria is also here from West. Next slide, please. So this is a 61-year-old gentleman who had a history of diabetes as well as hypertension. It was last known normal about maybe 10 hours prior to presentation to the hospital. His symptoms started about 9 o'clock in the morning, and he did not present until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It was on the weekend. He had noticed that he was having difficulty with his speech in terms of understanding and expressing himself. And he also noted some right-sided weakness. Then I usually was at 5. Now, he did not get any TPA. And we did a CAT scan, and the CAT scan showed an aspect of 9. His insula was out. And on the CTA, we saw a rapid as well. So on the CTA, you can see the cutoff in the left M1. And also you can see on our rapid AI app, there's less than 45% blood flow on the left side. We basically took him to the angio suite dock to puncture time of about 45 minutes in this case. And on our initial run, you can see that the abrupt cutoff in the left M1. I used a aspiration with a superior catheter, 6 French. And there is TK3 score. Drug to reperfusion was about 62 minutes. His exam had improved significantly. His NIH scale was down to a 1. He only had, I think, a mild software. And this was at about 9 o'clock in the evening. So he went to his room. Thank you. And his blood pressure was running in the 130s, 140s. And a few hours later, now we're talking about 1 o'clock in the morning, on a Sunday morning, his exam worsened. His NIH stroke scale became a 7. He had significant weakness on the right side. It was mute. Actually, it was severely aphasic at that point. And on the repeat angiogram, we're back to square one. There's a left M1 occlusion at the same site of prior thrombectomy. So at this moment, we had another aspiration thrombectomy, 1 pass, TK3, where you can notice there's a clot at the site of the M1, probably from ICAD. So at that moment, I made a decision to actually provide him a stent placement, intracranial stent. Prior to getting these back to the angio suite, we actually did an MRI, and we saw that he had a small left ventricular infarct. So, and there was no evidence of hemorrhage. So we had loaded in aspirin as well as Relenture. Intraoperatively, I gave him about 4 milligrams IA of integralin. And then I brought up a 5-French Sophia EX. And instead of using the wingspan, which is the classic intracranial stent we usually use, I opted for a coronary stent. And so the next slide. So we use the Medtronic balloon mounted Onyx Frontier. Based on the measurements, the 2 millimeter by 12 millimeter is the most optimal stent. And you can see the stent is a very good stent in terms of it's got a low track, it's got a low profile, and it tracks easily, and it's less bulky. So on the angiogram, there's good placement of the stent at the precise location that was desired. And on the post-stenting angiogram, you see there's good reperfusion, good antegrade flow, no stasis, no evidence of clot. He basically did well. His MRI showed a small MCA infarct. His exam proved, I think it was practically a 0 on discharge. And I actually saw him in clinic today and he's doing well. So some of the questions or some of the controversial areas is, would I have actually placed a stent during that initial thrombectomy? You can argue that there was evidence of plaque and it's most likely to probably end up reoccluding. But also, you can argue that there was good antegrade flow, there was no perfusion defect. We just need to optimize them on dual antiplatelets, and there's probably no need for stenting. So that's why I bring up this case so we can discuss among ourselves what's the best management option in this case.
So the question I have for you, straight up, is your case makes sense to put stenting out that we include right in the same spot. But then how do you 100%
So the one that's FDA approved that we usually consider would be the wingspan stenting. But we know with the wingspan it's a little bulky. In addition to being bulky, also you have to do this exchange when using a 300 wire. So I consider the Onyx Frontier in this case because it has a low profile and it's less bulky, it's more trackable. And you don't have to get a different system to do a balloon angioplasty. It can all be done in one setting. So that's why I consider this.
Is there any downside?
Downside to this stent? So, I mean, the concern will be if, not any downside on this particular stenting. Usually with the wingspan, the concern is there be microperforation of the vessel or the plaque. But it seems like a precise placement. That's necessary. In these cases, we underinflate. We certainly do not we actually put right under the nominal pressure. So that's what we did in this case. But also, you don't want to be too aggressive in terms of undersizing because in this case, with this plaque, you don't want to cause plaque disruption that actually goes distally into the distal MCA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Norman, that's an excellent outcome. And from a technical standpoint, I don't think the patient would expect anything better. I think from a decision-making standpoint, you did all the appropriate things, in terms of the initial thrombectomy, seeing if the patient fared well, and then if he had, then, as Sanford has shown, just best medical management with DAP and staff and lifetime. From a, decision to bring it back later, that night when he worsened, I think one of the things that we've discussed internally as a group is when we suspect underlying ICAD, should we wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes after our initial thrombectomy and reperfusion? And if the vessel is remaining open versus shutting down, then I think that also allows us our answer immediately while the patient's still on the table. While it may not allow us to load with DAP, as confidently and avoid any reperfusion hemorrhage or instant thrombosis, I think that's always sort of the gray zone is what do you do if the vessel immediately starts shutting down? And what are the technical aspects during, those situations? Especially if the patients receive IPPA, right? So, I think this patient, you did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna hand it over to Patrick.
Sorry, I'm taking over. So I have two of my fantastic, wonderful stroke coordinators from down at Baptist. One I have in person here today, Dawn Trey. She's fantastic. She's from South Miami Hospital. And then on Zoom, I have Nina Cruz from Baptist, Maine, and they're going to present a transfer case that they wanted to share with you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Working with cases, going from the modification of the FAST to the VFAST. For some institutions, it's very challenging. We have a lot of neurologists or physicians that are bored of doing the VFAST, but it was a huge undertaking of educating the physicians and the nursing of recognizing patients that coming in with a posterior circulation stroke, especially with a patient that's coming in with dizziness. In essence, their FAST ED score is a 0. So case is a patient of a 63-year-old male, and I believe he was asleep. He woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom to get something to eat. At that point, he noticed he was severely dizzy, unsteady. He went back to bed, and then he went around about, I'll say about 2:14. He decided to call EMS. The arrival to our hospital was at 3:14. His symptoms, according to EMS, wasn't activated because his FAST ED score was a 0. Upon arrival to the emergency room department, our EMS nurses immediately recognized that he was dizzy. He had aphasia, left facial droop, extremity weakness, and left hand breathing. Patient was immediately taken to CT. We initiated our CT angio protocol. The patient was presented to our Baptist case. We actually screenshot from my phone from my biz activation. This is where we actively do communication between our primary and our comprehensive center. The patient had to be intubated prior to transfer. He actually did our NIH prior 23. He received internet place within 31 minutes. Our goal for a primary is 30 minutes. For primary care centers, our IV TNK door is 20 minutes. For our door out, our system goal is 60. I'm very competitive. Our fastest time is 43 minutes to transfer out. The reason why we had a case of 86 minutes because the patient required intubation prior to transfer. Therefore, once the patient can't stand, by the time the patient scanned, our private ambulance is already on track. The only thing is, since the patient was intubated, we had to now deploy a critical care truck. So that was in effect about 15, 20 minutes or so. We'd like to highlight and praise our team. We have best responders with the ED nurse and our IC nurse working together as a team because we know taking a stroke alert, all hands on deck, especially when you need to mobilize that patient. We highlight the ED physician as well and our neurologist. We also even chime in with our CT technologist team, but also our neuroradiologists. So these are a couple of images of the patient CT angio, and I want to get in contact of the angio study that I'll be back with my counterpart, Nina, at Baptist made the comprehensive of the patient was transferred out. And as you can see, it was an EMS case, and we do share this information with EMS, but we do try to meet with them on a regular basis. When we have really good cases, I will reach out and send that with them as well.
Thank you, Dawn Trey.
Thank you, Dawn Trey. Nina, before you take over, I just wanted to point out something that I thought was really interesting coming to Baptist that I had not seen before. We actually activate or notify our transfer center for every stroke alert. Every stroke alert that comes in, the transfer center is aware. They send a truck, they're ready and waiting. Unfortunately, in this case, the patient needed additional support in a critical care truck, so there was a delay. But I think that that's a really interesting and useful practice and something that I had never seen before. So awesome job, Dawn Trey, to you and your team. And Nina, I'll pass it off to you.
Absolutely, thank you. Before I jump into what happened, let me know if you can't hear me very well. And I apologize I can't be there in person. I'm a little under the weather last minute. But I wish I was. And this meeting, I was sending Ashley messages. It's looks like a wonderful meeting, and I can tell the engagement and the collaboration. So I'm looking forward to what's to come. So I just wanted, before I jump into the remainder of the case, I just wanted to mention that before we used to not do CTAPs in all of our sites. Cases were transferred over to Baptist, Maine for CTAPs. And then based on that, if there was an LVO and the patient was a candidate, we'd take them up to thrombectomy. And as you can imagine, receiving the patient and taking them up to thrombectomy after getting advanced imaging, it was nearly impossible for us to meet our door to punctures of 30 minutes, especially on off hours cases. So what we started incorporating in all of our sites, even in our off-campus EDs, our micro hospitals, everyone is capable of performing CTAPs. So when the patient arrives, essentially, we have the team ready and we know if it's an LVO and if we're going up to thrombectomy. So with this specific case, as Dantre mentioned, we use the VIS application in order to communicate not only within our team, but between our entities as well. So we already knew, what was going on at South Miami Hospital and that there was an LVO. Of course, we wait to know if the patient or patient family consents, and if the patient's a candidate. So, I'm also 7 months pregnant and get a little short of breath, so bear with me. But Dantre's team went ahead and notified our best responders through the transfer center. We did find out, we do get report both best responder to best responder, and also the ICU nurses get report as well, our triage nurse, so that the team can go ahead and prepare for the patient post thrombectomy. And then of course there's physician to physician handoff. All of this occurs prior to the patient even arriving at our hospital. So a lot of parallel processes happening at the same time. So by the time the patient arrived to us, of course, intubated, the patient was an NIH of 34. The team was already activated as soon as we were made aware the patient was en route or coming our way. So the team was ready and waiting for the patient. We do have our registration right there next to our ambulance bay. So the process essentially is the patient arrives, we register the patient, we perform an NIH, and we go straight up to intervention. Our door to puncture was 27 minutes for the specific case. Our door to device was 61 minutes. The patient underwent mechanical thrombectomy ×4, did undergo an angioplasty and stenting of the basilar artery. And ultimately, we achieved a TP3 reperfusion. Again, as Dantre mentioned, we really do like to have a collaborative approach and recognize every single member of our team, from our fellows, from our neuroendovascular surgeons, our stroke nurses, our neurointerventional team, our neurorads, our neurologists, and our ED team. This is truly, again, a collaborative approach. This patient was discharged home from an NIH of 34 to an NIH of 1. So again, thank you for everywhere from our EMS team all the way to the patient's team through to discharge. It's truly life-changing to have a patient come in with such a high NIH and deficits to an NIH of 1. Any questions?
Hey, Nina, it's Aldo Manresa. Not sure if you can hear me or not.
Yes.
Hey, Nina. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm an emergency medicine physician over at Baptist, and I've had the privilege of working with Dantre in a couple of hospitals now, and also Nina. And as a promising practices going forward, I just want to say that us as physicians, we're only as good as our team around us. And I've been privileged to work with Dantre and now Nina and all our staff over there. And I want to say that their work is truly amazing, what they're doing. And surround yourself with good people, and good outcomes will come, and we'll be able to take care of our community better. So I just really want to recognize you guys, Dantre, Nina, and our whole staff there. And want to say thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Dr. Manresa.
Does anyone else have any questions for Dantre, for Nina, for the rest of our team. All right, with that, we'll pass it off. But it really does take a village, so I'm glad that you guys are all here. I'm glad that I have such an amazing team to support our stroke care at Baptist, and I will pass it on.
Thank you. So I quickly discussed the trials that were released during the European Stroke Conference and leave time for the cases like that's part of the study. So I'm Vasu Saini, the vascular information neurologist, currently practicing in Mount Sinai Medical Center on the beach. I've been long time at University of Miami for that. So this is a recent publication that we just published, an update on LV, not just revascularization of the acute ischemic stroke. This basically is an up-to-date until the ESOC happens. So I think this is perfect. And if we can reference this paper later, and then a couple of trials. I think some of us like to start out there. So the main crux is going to be discussing the large core trial that Tesla, that was just released at the ESOC conference, and the three other trials that we have information on from prior conferences. The main difference between the Tesla and other trials was that Tesla included patients with aspect score of 2, whereas the respiratory band limit, selective and angel aspect include patients mainly with aspect score of 3 to 5. Most of the trials included ICA and M1 inclusions, with some included inclusions. Tesla similarly included ICA and M1 inclusion. The patients were enrolled up to 24 hours, and NIHSS of greater than 6. So again, it's a prospective randomized control multi-center open label, assessed blinded anterior circulation acute ischemic stroke trial with rapid enrichment design, ICA-1 as discussed at IO 6, 0-24, aspects to the 5, primary efficacy as in most of the trials 90-day liquid MI score. That they pre-specify probability of superiority was to exceed 0.975. MRI was given to the patients in previous trial that was vestige Japan limit. Theory of fusion was used in the aspect and selected. And then this is something that we can discuss further because it comes down to the nuances how you look at the trial results, especially for the test cell. So there were 3 patients that were enrolled across multiple sites. The median analysis were 19. These were all severely debilitated patients. 1/5 received IVD. Now, the result, as such, looking at the primary endpoint, the trial was negative, with the probability of superiority reached just 0.957 rather than 975. However, there are certain nuances to interpreting this data. If you analysis just looking at the core lab imaging reads, there was benefit for EVD. What that just basically means is that the imaging that were actually aggregated from the core lab, knowing the aspects to be actually accurate, it did show the conclusive benefit. Now, some of the secondary endpoints, MI score 3 days with average thrombectomy, 20% 30% 20%, and major immunological improvement was again better than the thrombectomy. Safety, it's a safe procedure. One of the main concerns of these large trials was that they are more likely to bleed, but none of the trials, at least the 3 trials that were published before, where we did not show any incidents of need compared to the trial information that we already have for these stroke patients. And specifically Tesla, there were about 4% patients who suffered asymptomatic ICA in people in medical claims. So this again, just after this trial, they discuss the data and what information we have so far. Now we have at least 2 trials
pending, so this debate is not over yet, and the guidelines are going to wait for those trials before they're updated. But the previously trials before test size showed included about 1,000 patients, and they showed a favorable benefit to thrombectomy across the board. The ischemic cores were in the analysis, and the meta-analysis of the first three trials showed that the benefit to EVD was lost after the core size of more than 150 cc's, and also the major benefit was within the aspect 3 part. Whether patients with aspect 0 to 2 still benefit from thrombectomy is something that we still have to figure out. Timeless, again, so this trial was looking at whether administering connected this 1.5 milligrams per kg analogous to endovascular therapy if as indicated within a 4.5 to 24 hours, whether that improves outcomes. 458 patients enrolled, median match of 12, aspects of A, 77 underwent EVDs. The mean time for administration of stroke drug and the connected list is about 13 hours from symptom onset. And the EVT point function was within 20 minutes. That's excellent. So a lot of the benefit, or maybe in theoretical benefit, that it would treat or maybe the smaller or can increase the chance of recanalization of the connective use if economic was more than 20 minutes is hard. But of course, probably being the standard of care, it's hard to go back. So it's unlikely that this is going to change practice. We're going to be limited to using the orthoplace or connected place within the 4.5 hour window. And beyond that, we are going to perform thrombectomy device, making so forth. The good thing was that the magic concentration was still low. So that means there is some trend towards that using these drugs and a subset of patients that are identified maybe in the later studies can benefit from it, but at least this trial will be staged. Enrich trial is an interesting study, and I think this is one trial that will push us towards changing management for patients to come with interstitial hemorrhage. Until now, most standard practice is medical management, right? If it's a large bleed, needs an innate need. Because of concern for herniation, we do that. But this trial showed that using a very hot device manufactured by Nico, you can actually perform a minimally invasive surgery to evacuate the hematoma, and patients, especially with a lobar bleed, benefited from this approach. The earlier this is done, the better the outcomes. So probably within 24 hours, if preferable within 6 hours. One thing it did not show is benefit to evacuation of hematoma and deep hemorrhage. And I think Dr. Koch in university is actually studying these patients because there is something like physical contribution for stroke patients. Analogous to that, you can use DPI to actually study the brain pathways, the white matter tracks, whether they are disrupted already or not. Because if the hematoma is already disrupted, those white matter tracks, it's unlikely that these patients are going to benefit from hematoma. But if not, those are the better patients to target, especially with DPI. That's to be studied. And the importance of this is that the mean volume of ICU is about 50 cc's. They brought it down to about 15 cc's. The ideal end of treatment volume that they have established a standard for is that if it's 15 cc's end of treatment, doesn't hold target. I think the trial that discussed the number of trials in track 3 basically one line of track is going to be that aggressive blood pressure management, aggressive blood glucose management, and providing patients who have clear antibiotics
helps if it is done on an aggressive basis. And so you're moving on with so much information that we have allowed us to function. Now it needs to start the different information. What would benefit the patient coming with interstitial hemorrhage? These are the patients who are mostly neglected so far. So I'm going to leave a few other trials that we discussed. But I think it's better to move on to the cases to see some interesting stuff.
Thank you, Vasu. That's great. Quick question. For TNK, I guess, the data has come out and, now time is also showing as no significant. Are you saying TNK is equivalent to TPA, but that's it, not more effective? And probably easier to give, cheaper, but something more than that. Is that right?
So that's very interesting. And I think the European Stroke Organization came out with their guidelines. So they came out with a paper saying that the few instances that ENK does have benefit, right? Like if we are using a model of, say, a mobile stroke where administrating a drug within the mobile stroke unit and administrating IV EPA versus connectedness, it's beneficial to use a one push drug, right? But there's also information that they are at par with each other, given the differences in logistics. Like if it's easier to administer drug connectedness, it helps. That is beneficial in that regard. But as such, the data is not one over the other, because still, if you consider a wake-up trial or extend IPPA, data is more favorable in using IPPA.
Yeah, I think these are extremely difficult, just from a decision making when we see tandem occlusions or critical ICA stenosis and intracranial occlusion. I think the unique aspects of this case, the fact that was a great pickup. You noticed that there was contrast stasis even before the thrombectomy, and in fact the patient had gotten TPA. They put him in a pretty bad place. So I think the management was excellent. In terms of whether to do the thrombectomy, again, he had a fairly large parenchymal defect, given where the occlusion was. And so I would just think of it like you did, that, despite the basal ganglia hemorrhage, he has a large territory at risk. If you can salvage that, it's the dominant hemisphere. And then perhaps now that he has made a decent recovery, opt for a CEA of the carotid, so that would, instead of stenting, so you avoid dual antiplatelets and, further hemorrhagic risk. But I think that's a great outcome.
Thank you. I think CE would be a better outcome, I think. Thank you guys for your attention. Right, thank you so much. That was awesome. Great cases, by the way. Any questions from the crowd, any comments, or anyone from the Zoom call? You guys all stuck around. We appreciate that. All right. Another big thanks to Medtronic. Thank you guys. This is an awesome night. The caipirinhas were very relaxing. And thanks for all of you who do every day. We appreciate it. I know some of our EMS folks have to leave. I don't know that they're very appreciative. And we started back in 2012, and look where we've come a long way. So appreciate everyone coming, and I'll pass it over to Rajesh for some final words.
Thanks very much, Peter and Harris, Vasu, Selena, Mary, Ashley. I feel like this was a great success. We'd love to have your feedback for the next meeting. We want to, yes. Yeah, the polls that you guys conducted were awesome, and we'll continue to refine those so that we get timely feedback in terms of what else is valuable from an educational standpoint. One thing I want to encourage all the stroke centers, and with the help of the stroke coordinators, as you saw with Carolina and Dr. Romano, they've worked very hard on the EMS regional dashboards. And so please encourage your hospitals to share the key. So again, it's blinded to the rest of the world. It's just you're sharing the key to the EMS leadership, the medical directors, and that allows them to benchmark each hospital as an opportunity for improvement for all of us. So we look forward to all of your participation next time. Have a wonderful evening.